Oh man, my oil light's on. I better check this out. There's hardly anything on this dipstick. Oh no! Hey friends, it's Len here from 1A Auto. In this video, we're going to go over some of the top problems that we've come to find in this 4th generation Subaru Impreza. Stick around to the end because we do have a bonus problem for you. So let's get into this. Now for our first problem, we're going to talk about an engine oil pump seal leak. This will be located along the front of the engine, behind the serpentine belt area, which is the belt along the front, and behind the timing belt area. The timing belt you can't even see because it's behind the cover. Some common symptoms for this would be an oil light that pops up on the dash. Aside from that, if you were to take a peek underneath the vehicle itself, you might happen to find that you have a couple little drips coming down, or possibly even a puddle. If you see a puddle, you got a really big problem. A common reason for this is because where the oil pump is located mounted to the front of the engine, behind that timing belt cover, there's several bolts that hold it on. They tend to back off a little bit, and when this happens, the oil pump can come a little loose from the engine itself, cause a leak, and cause loss of oil pressure. If you don't have oil pressure, you're going to have serious internal engine damage. So if you feel as though you might have this issue, that's something you want to diagnose and fix ASAP. There's hardly any oil in this dipstick. Again. For our second problem, I want to talk to you about engine oil consumption. What I mean by that is maybe you keep finding that you have low oil on the dipstick and adding a little bit in between oil changes, but when you look underneath the vehicle or look at the engine itself, there's no external oil leaks. Now, these Subaru Boxer engines are known to have excessive oil consumption issues. What can happen is oil is sneaking by the oil rings on each one of the pistons. As it makes its way by there, it's going into the combustion chamber, getting burnt up, and getting shot right out that tailpipe. If you do find that you have blue smoke coming out of the tailpipe on initial startup, that's a sure sign that you do have an internal oil leak or consumption issue. So if you feel as though you're having an oil consumption issue, you're going to want to make sure you go to the dealer. They're going to run a test. They're going to change the oil, tell you to come back in exactly 1,000 miles on the dot. What they're going to do is check to see exactly how low that oil is. If it's any more than a quart after that 1,000 miles, technically you're burning too much oil and they're going to want to fix it for you. A couple of fixes for this could either be replacing the piston rings, which is a pretty in-depth job, or replacing the entire short block of the engine itself. It really depends on the dealer. Either way, obviously, if you feel like you have an engine oil consumption problem, just like the first problem, you're going to want to make sure you have it fixed ASAP so you don't cause internal engine damage. Now for our third problem, we're going to talk about head gasket leaks. This is also another very common issue on these particular vehicles. Commonly, if you had a head gasket leak, it would be one of two types of leaks, internal or external. An external leak, you would either see engine oil or even some coolant coming out in between the head and the block of the engine. If you had an internal head gasket leak, you might find that you either have blue smoke coming out the tailpipe because you're burning oil, or white smoke coming out of the tailpipe due to burning up some coolant inside that combustion chamber and it's getting shot right out that tailpipe. Now for our fourth problem, this one's going to be a little bit easier of a fix. It comes down to your Upstream O2 sensor, which is located directly on the exhaust along the front of your engine. Some symptoms that you might happen to find if you are having an issue with that Upstream O2 sensor. Check engine light. Bing! You pull the code, it tells you you're having an issue. Aside from that, you might find that you have poor fuel economy or poor engine performance, such as maybe it feels a little sluggish when you try to hit on that accelerator pedal, or even a rough idle when you're sitting still with the car idling. Unplug the O2 sensor, use an O2 sensor socket, and unscrew it from the exhaust. Once you have it out of there, compare it to the brand new one, install the new O2 sensor, put everything back together, and make sure you clear that check engine light, and then take your vehicle for a road test. Now for our fifth problem, we're going to talk about automatic transmission issues. In these Subarus, they have what's known as a CVT transmission, continuously variable transmission. Now these CVT transmissions are set up differently internally than a regular transmission. Instead of using gears, this system will use internal pulleys. Symptoms that you might find with a CVT transmission might be a growling sound coming from internally. You might find that you have a stalling condition, or even it feels as though the vehicle itself is shifting erratically. While you're driving down the road, it kind of wants to shift in between gears. And lastly, the dreaded CVT shudder. You're driving down the road and you feel as though it's just kind of shuddering on you. Now, as far as the CVT transmission issues, it comes down to a valve body located inside of the transmission, directly behind the pan right here, along the bottom. This isn't necessarily something that you'd want to fix on your own. If you're still under warranty, go ahead and go to the dealer. Otherwise, if you wanted to, you can also go to a transmission specialty shop. At that point, what they would do is they would go ahead and take down the pan, replace the valve body as needed, change out all that fluid and filter, and then after they have everything back together with brand new fluid, they would want to reprogram the system so it's going to relearn the adaptives for the transmission itself. All right, as promised, we have a bonus for you. On these vehicles, it's extremely common to have to replace the rear wheel bearing at one point in time. Common symptoms if you are having an issue with the wheel bearing might be a howling noise while you are driving down the road. You might also find that you have a clunking noise if you were to safely raise and support the vehicle. Other than that, you might find that you have an ABS light on the dash. Fixing the wheel bearing isn't necessarily the hardest thing. You're going to want to safely remove the wheel, remove and inspect the brakes, and then at that point you can start removing the wheel bearing. It's just bolted on. You want to make sure you have all the torque specs and of course the proper part. Aside from that, put it all together, make sure you torque it to the manufacturer's specifications, and then take it for a road test. Now, I hope you liked the video. I hope you found it interesting. If there was something in this video that you think might help somebody, go ahead and share it with them. It would mean everything to me. If you liked the video or loved the video, go ahead and smash on that like button for me. It would mean the world. While you're at it, go ahead and subscribe. Ring the bell. That way there you, all of your friends, can be kept up with all of our latest content. Thanks.